lesson we're going to take a look at the 7 sharp 9 chord, often referred to as the Hendrix chord, and we'll take a look at common shapes that are worth knowing and also how the chord is constructed. You may have first come across this, like I did, through things like Purple Haze or Voodoo, through Jimi Hendrix, and it's a chord which is not just exclusive obviously to him, and it's used in jazz a fair bit, so it's one you want to know, and it's one I think most guitarists only have one place to play. So I'm going to give you 3 different positions to play it. So onto the shapes. Now this is a 5-note chord, and I've got shapes on root E, A and D, and that's the way I like to learn chords, is having ones on E, A and D, so that I can always be close to a shape if I need it. Now the way most people will encounter this chord to begin with, like I did, is with this shape here, root A. Now on this one we're actually missing the 5th, so we're going E on the A string at fret 7, G sharp, which is our 3rd, on the D string at fret 6, D fret 7, which is our flat 7 or minor 7th on the G string, and then we've got G on the B string, that's our sharp 9 at fret 8. So we haven't got the note B there, and if you've followed any other chord lessons by myself, you'll notice a common occurrence is quite often with sort of chord voicings with more extensions, we tend to omit the 5th unless it's been flattened or sharpened. So quite a common thing here, we've just got root 3rd, 7th and the altered note, the sharp 9 in this instance. So this is a movable shape, but because it's E here, we can also play the open E's. So it has a nice resonance. But if you want to move it around, you want to make sure you mute both E strings. Now, you can do this by allowing your middle finger, which is playing fret 7, to rest against the E string so that it dulls it, or you can wrap your thumb over the top. Either will achieve the same thing, but you want to be able to move it without, obviously, that string ringing out, because it could clash against other chords. You'll probably find that you're muting the E string at the bottom already, either by the little finger. I haven't got it dead upright, I've got it at a slight angle so it kills it. But your first finger, which comes across almost barred, kind of flat-ish, will probably be touching it as well. So we want to hear 5 notes but be able to strum all the strings. So that's our root A shape. Now let's move on to root D. So this is a great stab one, like that. So we've got this here, down here at fret 2, we've got the middle finger doing the root on the D string, we've got the major 3rd with the first finger on the G string, we've got the flat 7 on the B string at fret 3 with the little finger, and the little finger also doing the sharp 9 on fret 3 of the E string, so a little bar there at the bottom. You could obviously do it with 4 fingers, I just find this quicker to get into. So that is a great chord for maybe sort of chord stabs, or for possibly chord melody, or if you want it to stand over the top of something. It sustains nicely as well, that shape. Final shape for you, root D. Now this one I don't use as often, it's a bit muddy, but it's got a place, worth knowing. So we've got the root on fret 12 with middle finger, we've got the 3rd on the A string, fret 11 with the first finger, we've got the 7th with the 3rd finger on fret 12, and we've got the sharp 9 with the little finger on fret 12 also. Bit muddy, but you could get the open strings with this one again because it's E. Let's take a look at the intervals that this chord contains. So if we take E7 sharp 9, we have E with the root, we have G sharp, our major 3rd, and we have B the 5th, and we have D, our minor 7th or flat 7, and then we have G, which is our sharp 9. Now why is this referred to as sharp 9? Well, if you took the actual 9th of E, it would be an F sharp. So say if we take an E major scale, and if I play into the 2nd octave, so if I go E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, my next note would be F sharp. So that would be the 9th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to raise that semitone up to a G, so that's why it's called a sharp 9. And if you think about an E9 like this, the only difference between that chord and this chord is the 9th. This chord here, the traditional 9th, dominant 9th chord, contains root 3rd, 5th, flat 7 and a 9th. This is exactly the same in terms of intervals, it's just got the 9th is sharpened so it becomes slightly different character. It's certainly more tense than this, which has a very sweet sound. This is a slightly more tense sound. So this chord is simply an E7 with one added note, and it's that extra note for me which gives the sound of the blues. Now if you look at those notes within that chord again, an interesting thing is it actually contains the notes of two kind of very common guitar chords. It contains the notes of E, G sharp and B, and it contains the note of a G chord, GBD. Also interesting to note is the fact that we've got two notes which are incredibly close in the musical alphabet. We've got G and G sharp, and if we played them right next to each other on the guitar, let's say here, that's what they would sound like. Obviously in the chord here, this voicing, they're spaced out by a bit further than that, but you still got that tension within the chord. Now, that sharp 9 could go under another name. Some of you might have looked at it and thought that's actually a minor third, and yet a sharp 9, yeah, you could call it a minor third as well. So in this chord we've got a major and a minor third, two real opposites colliding together in the chord to give us this awesome sound. The other cool thing about realising that there's a G triad in there as well is that when you play over this chord you can combine E and G triads like this. Let me get a chord going. I'll just freeze the sound. So you can play an E triad and a G triad. G, E. So you get this interesting possibility where you can put those two arpeggios over the top of the chord. I think Hendrix, recording wise, first used this on Purple Haze in 1966 on the first Jimi Hendrix Experience album, but obviously it's been around a lot longer than this chord. It wasn't invented in 1966. I certainly heard Django Reinhardt using it back in the 1930s and 40s. So it's a chord which is common in funk, in blues, in jazz. You also get it in rock guitar as well, so it's quite diverse in its usage. Now on to when and where to use this chord. Well, at the start of the lesson I said, you know, this is an altered dominant chord, so what's the first thing a dominant chord wants to do? Well, more often than not it wants to go to 1. So let's take a 2-5-1 in A major. So we take B minor 7, E7 to A major 7, something like that. We could put our E7 sharp 9 in replacement of the E7, so we'd have this instead. Let's hear that again. Nice potential for voice leading as well. With that sharp 9 is a semitone away from the major 7 of A, so you could go to the sharp 9. So on that B string we got F sharp, G, G sharp. So if I ring out the B, which I think is a nice sort of movement that you can get. So we could place it in the position of a dominant chord in a 2-5. We could also do that in a minor 2-5-1. So in a minor 2-5-1 in A minor it would sound like this. That sort of sound. Now, when and where to use it, other considerations really is whatever. If it's a melody, you know, someone's playing the melody to a song, then you don't want that sharp 9 to clash horrifically with it. If someone was playing a major 7 or the 9th in the melody, the sharp 9 might be too tense there. So just, you know, use your ears and listen for that, or use the glares of other musicians you're playing with to work out whether it's working. Another natural place to stick this chord in is obviously in the blues, where dominant 7th chords are just very heavily used. Now, you could use it for every blues chord, so if you were in a blues in C, you could have C7 sharp 9, F7 sharp 9 and G7 sharp 9, but I think it would get a bit predictable. Where I like to use it in a blues is on the actual 5 chord. So in the let's say the last line of a blues is going G7, F7, C7, just a basic blues, so like... we could make that first chord. A little bit more interesting, and the interesting thing about this here, So if you're in a blues, the 5 chord in this instance is in the key of C is G. The sharp 9 is a B flat, which is the flat 7 of C7. So I think it just really lifts and just enhances that bluesy sound. So far those examples, the dominant 7 sharp 9 chord has been functioning as a 5 chord, but you can also have secondary dominance. So if we're in the key of C, for instance, G7 is our dominant, but we could use any other dominant chord to move to other chords. So say we put E7 in, say we had C6-9 or something like this, and we went E7, straight away that's the secondary dominant. It's probably going to go to A minor or A7. Now we could make that E7 a sharp 9, so we have C6-9, E7 sharp 9, A minor, just for a slight variation. So again, use your ears, try and fit them in, and a song you could look at to get started with them, just uses the chord once, is Work Song. I made a video on how to play the chords to that standard and how to solo over it, so check that out in the description or the card above. Now, finally, just to say, in terms of playing over this chord, thinking of a 5-note arpeggio, personally I don't think of like the 5 notes like that. What I do personally is you know, like I said earlier, this chord's got an E triad and a G triad in it, so I just think I combine E and G triads, you know, like, and that will create the sound of the chord, and I can just tap into those easy shapes that I already know, rather than thinking of 5-note arpeggios, which can be a bit fiddly. So get to grips with those 3 shapes, try and integrate them into your playing. You could always work them around the circle of fifths to ensure that you've got them down all over the neck. As I said, the root A and root D probably more useful. The root E is nice to know, but I don't use that too often because it's a bit too muddy. But yeah, put it in, experiment with using this chord. If you're not familiar with Purple Haze, where most people first encounter this chord, then you know you definitely want to check that out. He also used it in Voodoo Child, and I'm sure like in live versions of things like Hey Joe as well. And be sure to subscribe if you don't already. I do jazz guitar lessons every Wednesday and Saturday, so if you're new here, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.